Serialization of the Wacky Misadventures of Warble McGorkle, Chapter 12 of 70. Warble expounds on Southern Mythory, Myth and History. Calm down, neighbor, calm down, H.R. admonishes. Nobody said anything about war. My friend here was simply asking me who the 29th President of the United States was, and phooey. H.R.'s neighbor interjects, waving his hand in a dismissive gesture. President of the United States, my chicken fried sycamore. President of the Yankee States, maybe. Jefferson Davis is my president, don't you know, and Robert E. Lee my vice. With that, the disappointed man leaves, dragging his saber and musket on the ground behind him in a manner strikingly reminiscent of a caveman, club in hand, returning home from an unsuccessful wife or mastodon hunting expedition. After the McGorkles have been escorted into the Brooks parlor, Warble congratulates his old workmate on his quick thinking. Nice one, H.R. Beautiful, in fact. You haven't lost it. No, sirree, Bob. You certainly haven't lost it. Just as smooth as ever. Don't mention it, old salt. Tell me, though, why all the intrigue? Warble explains to H.R. all about the plots and schemes to wrest his world-beating inventions from him and how he needs to lie low for a while, and asks if he can hole up with H.R. and his family for a spell. Any time, pard, any time. Mi casa es tu casa. Thanks, H.R., thanks. Warble replies, a look of confusion clouding his face. H.R. explains that his wife isn't home from shopping yet. She went to the supermall, and retreats into the kitchen to grab some liquid refreshments for his guests. As soon as H.R. is out of earshot, Warble turns to Mary and says, "Did you hear that, Miss Mary?" "Hear what, Colonel? About the supermall?" "No, before that. H.R. was speaking Latin, the language of priests, lawyers, and other crooks. He said, Mi costa tu costa, which means, when translated, if it costs me, it will cost you. The nerve of that guy." "Oh, Colonel, dear, I'm sure it was all a joke. You said H.R. didn't have a serious bone in his body." "Yes, you're right, Miss Mary. It must have been meant in jest. An old shipmate would never do that to a friend." By the way, Warble, why was H.R.'s neighbor getting so excited about car rental agencies and dog food? "What in tarnation are you talking about, Miss Mary? Are you feeling all right? Were you out in the sun too long?" "Don't give me that line, Colonel. You heard him talk about Alamo, too. I know you did. He said the South's going to rise and shine, and don't forget the Alamo, or something like that." "Oh, that. Don't you know anything about Southern Mythory, Miss Mary?" "Mythory? What's Mythory?" "What's Mythory? What's Mythory, you so ignorantly ask? Why, the South would be nothing without its Mythory. It's a real mystery that you don't even know the term, Miss Mary. Shameful. Absolutely shameful." Warble makes a sound with his tongue on the roof of his mouth that is supposed to be shame-inducing. "Oh, come off it, Colonel," Mary says, tapping her foot impatiently. "What is Mythory, then, if you're so smart?" "As everybody knows, Miss Mary, Mythory is the combination of mythology and history that defines the South. For example, H.R.'s friendly neighborhood neighbor over there, old What's-His-Face, mentioned two chief elements of Southern Mythory: the South rising again, and the Alamo. True dyed-in-the-wool way down yonder in the land of cotton types believe that the Blue Ridge Mountains are going to get taller as the Rockies recede in elevation. Eventually, the South will be taller, elevation-wise, than the North. They will then build forts on every mountain ridge, where they can look down on and monitor everything the Yankees do." "Why don't they just move to the Bronx and buy a season ticket?" Mary inquires skeptically. "Miss Mary, you're drifting on me here. Come on, concentrate, focus. You'll never learn anything if you don't pay attention to me. Ready?" Warble fixes Mary with an intense and challenging look. Mary simply stares back at Warble, arms crossed, right foot beating time on the parquet floor to the rhythm of her heart. Now, Warble proceeds, the Alamo is a hard-shelled animal that lives in the Texas desert. If not for the Alamos, the early Texans would have starved to death. No surviving Texicans, no Texas. No Texas, no South. So, the Alamo is the official animal of the South. Incidentally, or coincidentally, whichever you prefer, the Alamo's unique protective skin layers were the inspiration for a certain type of automobile tire. Warble smiles smugly, proud of his almost limitless knowledge of things both arcane and obscure. Priceless, Colonel, simply priceless, H.R. says as he returns to the room, lemonades in hand. He had taken the words right out of Mary's mouth. The McGorkles, without even having given it any advance thought, have planned their trip to Louisiana perfectly. H.R. happens to have just returned home from a long voyage as captain of the merchant vessel Freedom of the Seas, and will be for a full month a man of leisure. At first, the days pass pleasantly. The two couples pay a visit to the French Quarter, where Warble expounds and expands on, one, the history of Dixieland jazz. It was inspired by the sound that the crickets, bullfrogs, and manatees make in the swamps at night. Satchmo Armstrong lived there, along with his best friend Satchel Paige, and converted the sounds of the swamp to bugle noises. Satchmo had been a bugler in the war between the states, you know. 2 Bourbon Street. The locals got up in arms by the tax on whiskey that the British were imposing and whacked the bunghills out of all the barrels of bourbon the Brits had ported up the hill to the top of the street. They wouldn't have minded being taxed after drinking the bourbon. It was being taxed prior to drinking it that got their dander up. Their battle cry of freedom was, no taxation without intoxication. Spurred on by this snappy slogan, rivers of the golden fluid were wasted, soaking the wooden sidewalks, which thereafter warped into a curlicue shape, somewhat akin to the look of cuticles that have never been trimmed. 3. The French Quarter itself. The original French Quarter was a 25-cent piece commissioned by Madame Bovary of and for Napoleon. On the head side, Mr. Bonaparte is depicted eating a bowl of the ice cream flavor named after him, and on the tail side he is applying Desinex to the up until then incurable itch he had just below his left nipple. Warble is explaining to Mary about the great New Orleans hero, Mardi Gras, for whom the residents of the city hold a large soccer match each year. To wit, how Mr. Gras was a pitcher for the Philadelphia Phillies when they won the World Series, and how he made New Orleans famous by singing When the Saints Go Marching In under his breath while beating out time with his mitt on his thigh as he walked off the mound to the dugout after each successful inning or outing. When a policeman knocks at the door.